John's not in trouble, actually. Thanks for coming up, John. I understand you have some of these little glow tracks at home.
Yeah.
I understand you have a special ministry that you do with these.
Actually, two types.
Oh,
The first one is we all get these credit cards in the, or applications in the mail.
I get them.
If you notice, there's a no postage necessary if mailed in the United States.
So what do you do with those envelopes, John?
Well, we take a track, wrap it up in a piece of paper, put it in here, and drop it in the mail.
And it gets sent for free.
And the post office makes money. Because the postage will be paid by the addressee.
No, what do you know?
So
A missionary project, and it doesn't cost anything.
doesn't cost no. Now, you know, you can put a little note in there. Have a nice day. Please pass this on, or, you know.
You say there's another ministry you do as well?
Well, if I have them in the car when I'm traveling, when I stop at the rest areas, they all have these maps.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I put them in there. I don't just sit them on the shelves
Oh,
because they'll throw them away. But if I put them inside these brochures, you know, you get these magazines, you open them up, stuff is falling out all the time. So I put them in there. Then I try to use the ones like, you know, if I'm on the Indiana Toll Road, I'll put them in the Shipshewana one, or, you know, things that I think that are popular.
Well, what do you know? Thank you very much, John, for sharing that with us.
That's what I do with them.
I give these out as well, and I was at Strachan Van Thiel this week, and so, you know, I've told you that it's hard to do this. It takes a little bit of psychological energy to say, okay, I'm going to hand a little tract to someone, but I gave one to the checkout lady there, and she said, oh, well, thank you very much. We've been discussing these. Now, I don't know who else is giving them out at Strax and Van Thiel in Hobart. Is anyone else doing that? I thought maybe somebody else, maybe it's just me, but I'm giving them out there, and they're talking about them. That encouraged me so much to go ahead and do this, no matter what. Who cares what they think of you? They may even never see you again, who knows? They might get fired, you know, you might die, who knows? And then they'd have a tract. I mean, I don't like to think negative thoughts like that on a sunny day like today. But you can give these out so easily, and it doesn't, you know, you don't have to pay any money, you just hand it to somebody. I say, here's something that you might enjoy, or this is for you, have a good day, something like that, positive. And I think it matters if you're doing it all the time. The pastor seemed to indicate, that showed this on the video, that if you give these out, they know who you are, and they then know that if they've read them, that they can talk to you about the issue. So I would really encourage you to do this. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you for this day again, and bless me as I speak to your people. I pray that this message might be something from you. In Jesus' name, amen. Is this working? Can you hear me okay? How about if I turn this away? Can you hear me? Yep. Cool. It's a big thing. You know, I'm not a big man, and you can't even see me. So, I've always admired a person who can take a stand, especially when taking that stand is costly. I've always admired people like that. They have courage. Philip Yancey tells a story in his book, The Jesus I Never Knew, about when he was young, a youth. Once, he writes, he became so convicted about his addiction to material things that he gave away to a friend his prized collection of 1,100 baseball cards, including an original 1947 Jackie Robinson and a Mickey Mantle rookie card. Anticipating a divine reward for his renunciation, He instead had to endure the monumental injustice of watching his friend auction the entire collection at a huge profit. His friend, mind you. Acting on his conviction costed him. The 3 Hebrew youth on the plain of Dura were cut from the same cloth. You're familiar with the story in Daniel 3. When push came to shove, they took a stand that was going to cost them their lives. But because of their courage and faith, a witness to the Babylonian king was made, and that witness has gone to the whole world. Everyone knows of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You can go to China. You can go to the jungles of Africa. I was in the jungles of Africa. Well, it wasn't really jungles. I mean, it was a nice place. But they knew the story of Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego in Africa. Now it would be nice to dwell on the victory gained there. But instead of looking at that moment of crisis, I want to explore today how they came to be able to do that. What was it that allowed them to be brave enough when it was all on the line, brave enough to say, we will not deny our God, but stand for him whatever the cost? What was it that made them able to do that? I think there were 3 things. 3 things. Number 1, and most important, they learned by taking a stand on small things first. A seemingly really small thing, food. Now you remember, when they first got to Babylon, they were faced with a dietary choice. Let's read the verses. It's a very simple story. Daniel chapter 1. Daniel 1, verse 5. They're captives in Babylon. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among them were from Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names, Daniel, the name Belteshazzar, and Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. It would have been so easy to give in. I mean, what could a little pork and wine do? You don't have to eat much of it after all. Be reasonable. But instead of listening to that oh so subtle argument, they held true to principle. You know, we all face this sort of thing with food. Don't I know? We say, well, I shouldn't eat that, but it looks so good. Just a little bit. And we give right in. They didn't. They chose to follow the principles of health, and by doing so, they learned what it meant to stand for right. By doing this little thing, they learned what it meant to stand for right. There's another thing that they did when they made this choice. They made it inconvenient for their caretakers. Think about it. Think about the head of the cafeteria there. He says, wait a minute, you mean I have to cook some special food for these guys? I don't want to do that. And the king's one that oversaw these young men, says, well, this is what they want to do, and you're going to have to make sure that it happens. I don't want to do it. Sometimes when we take a stand, it inconveniences somebody else. Now, I'm very sensitive to what other people think. I don't want to make them mad at me. I don't want to make them think that, well, this guy's such a picky guy and such a stickler. I don't want to deal with him. But sometimes we need to take a stand even though it means that somebody else is inconvenienced. Another thing, they were outside the mainstream of thinking at that school. Everyone else was eating the food. Even the other Israelites were eating the food. They were the only ones that weren't. But they wanted something else, something more important. We must not be afraid to go against the flow and against others' opinions and against others' conveniences so that we might do the right thing. So the first thing they did was they stood for something that was small. I remember the first time I stood up to my dad on a religious question. It was a little thing. The family ate out on Sabbath. I've told you this before. They ate out on Sabbath, and I decided that it was something I didn't want to do. And so that week I was under conviction. Ever been under conviction? Boy, I should do this, but it's going to be difficult. I've got to stand up to him. He's not going to be happy. What am I going to do? And so the first week, I gave in. I didn't do it. I went out. I didn't want to face my dad. I'll tell you, the next week it was worse. I was even under more conviction. You know, when you do something, when you think you should do something that's right and you do the wrong thing, boy, I tell you, it comes back, especially when you're a young person. That's the way it was with me. And the next week, I could not do it. So I stood up and said, Dad, I'm not going to go. He had a few angry words for me, and that was it. There was another word said. My mother actually stood up for me. But you know what was the big thing? The big thing was that I had done it. I had stood up, and I had learned that I could endure, that it was something I could do. I'm telling you this because unless you learn to stand up for principle, you'll never be a man or woman of character. You have to stand up. You have to do it. Second, they were convinced and passionate about the God they served and about their principles. Listen to what they say here. Here's my version of Daniel 3:16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you on this matter. If we are thrown into furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, O king. We want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. The next verse, then Nebuchadnezzar was furious. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious, and they knew he was going to be furious. This was not some small thing they were doing. They had led lives of dedication. They had prayed. They knew God personally. It was one of the most important things of their lives. You can see this was not a small matter for them. How about you? Are you serious about God? Are you taking time to know him? Are you opening your heart and letting him in? Remember this prayer, search me and know me and see if there is any wicked way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. Search me and know me, O God. Do you want to be searched by God? Do you want him leaf through the book of your life and get to know it? He's a kind searcher, I want to tell you that. But unless you allow him in, he can't help you take out the bad parts. Edit the parts out of the book that aren't so good. Thirdly, they prepared for the test and had thought about what to say in the time of crisis. Now, I've read what they said to the king. You notice that this was no mild, mamby-pamby kind of speech. They just got right at it, and they knew what they wanted to say to him, and they said it bang, bang. They were so clear about their thinking that the king knew exactly what they wanted to do, to stand for God no matter what. And of course, being a king, after the Eastern tradition, he was furious. He was not going to put up with that kind of talk. He'd had enough of them right away. And in spite of all the training that they'd had and everything that they had done, it was into the fiery furnace with you. I've had enough of you. The king knew because they were clear. If we are to stand for God, we have to think about what we will stand for and how we will stand, what we're going to do. Prayerfully consider how you will answer when you are called to do so. It is true that the Spirit will give us words at the time of crisis, but to have thought about it and considered it and prayerfully even written it out if you know there's a crisis at hand, that's a good idea. Being prepared is half the battle. And taking such a stand might come sooner than you think. Recently, the Indiana Legislature passed a law regarding religious liberty. Anybody heard about that? It's a law about religious freedom, after all, right? Are you interested in religious freedom? For yourselves? For others? It caused a firestorm of controversy. A nationwide brouhaha. Don't you like that word, brouhaha? I love to say that word, brouhaha. Just has a certain taste. And the reason there was a nationwide brouhaha, and the reason was that homosexual advocates decided to make the law an example of discrimination, not religious freedom. Now, there are similar laws on the books of several states, and even there a federal law along the same lines, signed in 1993 by President Clinton, the Restoration of Freedom Act. It was to protect various religious practices that the Supreme Court had deemed were unconstitutional. You'd be surprised to know that the actual law that prompted this law was about the Navajo practice of smoking peyote. Did you know that? The Religious Restoration of Freedom Act was about peyote. You know what that is? You all know what peyote is? I think it's like marijuana. It's a cactus, and they brew it up with somehow, and they... Daryl, I'm surprised you know about this. Yes, I am. I'm Daryl. I'm sorry. I don't mean to embarrass you. You're a great guy. They smoke this stuff, and it's like marijuana. And so they were using this in their religious practices, and someone sued about it, and the Supreme Court said it's illegal because it's a controlled substance. And the Congress passed a law that said it was okay. So why is there a problem with religious freedom, religious expression? The reason is this law gave protection, this Indiana law gave protection to bakeries and florists who did not want to do a gay wedding. That was the main purpose of the law. And the gay advocates wouldn't have it. After the law was passed, repercussions were swift and decisive. The governor of Connecticut banned government travel to Indiana, as did the governor of California, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. The companies Apple, Walmart, Lilly, Yelp, Salesforce, GenCon, and a host of others were planning to reduce their footprint in the state. The Pacers, the NBA, and the people that run the March Madness program for college basketball, who were about to do the Final Four in Indianapolis, said, we're rethinking using Indianapolis for the Final Four. Do you realize what a force this is? The governor and the legislature immediately collapsed and changed the law. There is no legal protection for people that don't want to do gay weddings. They will be shut down. An example of what could happen was this little pizza place in Walkertown, southwest of South Bend. I think the population is 2,200. You've heard of this place? Memories Pizza? Yeah, you know about it, don't you? One of the owners, actually, the reporter was going around small towns in Indiana asking questions, and specifically, he was looking to find a place that wouldn't cater a gay wedding. And so he walked into this pizza place, and they had pictures of Jesus on the wall or something like that. And he figured he'd found the place. And so he asked them if they served gay people there, and they said, yes, of course, you can buy pizza here. But would you do a gay wedding? No, if we were asked, we wouldn't cater a gay wedding. How many of you would go to a pizza place to cater your wedding? Oh, really? I guess my wife and I did look into it, but no, we didn't look into it, actually. I don't know. I remember we had some delicious carrot cake, actually, a very healthful cake. It was a very nice reception, actually. No pizza. And so this guy was looking for a place that would do this so that he could nail them, actually. And of course, there was a national, a whole lot of people got into this. These people are bigots. A athletic director in South Bend, or I think it was Elkhart, twittered or something that he was going to go down and burn the place down. He was actually arrested. You're aware probably that some people got on the radio to raise money for these folk. Did you hear about that? $842,000. So they're going to do okay, aren't they? It's interesting, though, that that's very grassroots stuff, that $800,000. The real power is not with the people that did that. It's with the people. I mean, $800,000, what's that to Apple? What's that to the power of Apple or the NBA? It's nothing. NBA and Apple have the power. There was an editorial written in the New York Times, April the 3rd. The title of the article is Bigotry, the Bible, and the Lessons of Indiana. And I want to read you a little bit from this article because it gives you the idea of what the people that are for gay marriage are thinking. Here it is. That many Christians regard homosexuality and the Bible as incompatible is understandable. That many Christians regard homosexuality and the Bible as incompatible is understandable. Those words are almost like brouhaha. An example, not so much of hatred's pull as tradition's sway. This guy writes well. Beliefs ossified over centuries aren't easily shaken. But in the end, the continued view of gays, lesbians, and bisexuals as sinners is a decision. It's a choice. It prioritizes scattered passages of ancient texts over all that has been learned since, as if time had stood still, as if the advances of science and knowledge meant nothing. It disregards the degree to which all writings reflect the biases and blind spots of their authors, cultures, and eras. It ignores the extent to which interpretation is subjective, debatable. And it elevates unthinking obeisance above intelligent observance, above the evidence in front of you. What do you think of that? Is this guy smart or what? It elevates unthinking obeisance, that's obedience, above intelligent observance, above the evidence in front of you. So our debate about religious freedom should include a conversation about freeing religions and religious people from prejudices that they needn't cling to and can indeed jettison, get rid of. Mitchell Gold, a prominent furniture maker and gay philanthropist, founded an advocate group, Faith in America, which aims to mitigate the damage done to gay people by what's called religious-based bigotry. God told me that church leaders must be made to take the homosexuality, Gold told me that the church leaders must be made, quotes, to take homosexuality off the sin list, end quotes. His commandment is worthy and warranted. All of us, no matter our religious tradition, should know better than to tell gay people that they are an offense, and that precisely what the florists and bakers who want to turn them away are saying to them. Now, I am wondering, myself, who is able to take any action off the sin list? And if they're authorized, why not make it a clean sweep? Yes, right. I mean, if you're authorized to take something off the sin list, let's just take it all off. Well, I don't mean that literally. Yeah, or I've seen many comments about adultery, actually. The 10 suggestions. But the church has stood for the biblical view on this matter, and the Bible is quite clear despite the New York Times. Now I want to tell you something, and this is the rub. It's really, really, really difficult to go against the culture. And you Sabbath keepers know that. We're out of step. We worship on Sabbath. It's just not what's done. And if you're going to change the sin list, why not change that? It's so inconvenient. In summary, to prepare for the inevitable confrontation, 1, start standing, and I speak to the young people, start standing for principles on small matters now. Start standing for principle on small matters now. 2, know what you believe and believe it with passion. Know what you believe. Know about it. Make sure. And then believe it with passion with your whole heart. And 3, prepare for the test. Remember that story about the baseball cards? That silly young youth? Yancey became convinced he should not be controlled by material things and gave away his baseball card collection. It seemed to be the silly action of a misguided youth who took things to extreme. Have you ever seen the young people do that? They just go overboard. And that's what this guy did. His mother could have looked at him and said, maybe turned to her father and said, well, that's Philip, you know. He'll grow out of it. But Yancey has become the conscience of the evangelical church. He is widely respected and a world-traveled speaker. He has written several books. One of them is What's So Amazing About Grace? Ever heard of that book? It's a wonderful book. God has given him a much wider field of labor. And why, pray tell, did he do that? God saw he could be trusted to be faithful, even when it was difficult. He could be trusted to be faithful, to stand no matter what, because he was convicted. I wonder, can you be trusted to be faithful? Can God depend on you? Can he, really? You can only know if you are willing to step out. Then you'll know. Take a stand. Amen. Is 99. Let's stand.